Have you ever wondered why innovation is so difficult in the local church? Why, even when you have a great idea, you end up defaulting to what's familiar? The truth is, there are powerful forces at play, relational, cultural, even neurological, that make innovation harder than it should be. So, in this episode, I want to expose 5 specific barriers that may be keeping your church stuck and show you how to push past them with courage, clarity, and faith. Hi, I'm Larry Witzel, and this is Ministry Insights from SermonView. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. I do hope that you'll find this content is educational, inspiring, and affirming to your ministry. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and share it with a colleague. Innovation is hard, especially in a local church environment. But it's not laziness or a lack of vision. It's not because we lack creativity or because we're unwilling to try new things. There are real, powerful forces at play, relational, cultural, even neurological, that make innovation harder than it should be. These forces act like gravity, pulling us back into the comfort of what we know, even when it's not working anymore. So in today's episode, I want to name some of those forces, exposing 5 specific barriers that may be keeping your church stuck. The first is institutional culture that punishes failure. Many church systems reward visible success, baptisms, big attendance numbers, packed events, but they punish failure. So when a new idea doesn't work, it's often spun as a success or quietly buried. This culture stifles learning. We can't grow if we aren't willing to honestly evaluate what went wrong. At SermonView, we once helped a pastor launch a creative campaign titled Questions I'd Like to Ask God. Despite our best efforts, only one person showed up on opening night, and they never came back. Later, I saw the same title lauded in an article, but with no baptisms and no public response. That's not innovation. That's failure being spun to protect ego. Real innovation means celebrating the courage to try and learning from the miss. The fact is, failure is a key feature of true innovation. We need to talk about what didn't work without shame. We need to celebrate the courage to try, even when the outcome isn't a home run, because an honest postmortem is more valuable than a polished press release. That's how we learn. That's how we grow together. We need to begin to push back against this institutional culture that punishes failure. Failure is not the end. It's simply a data point that moves us forward, but it can only move us forward when we acknowledge it as a fail. The second barrier is trying to control innovation yourself. Innovation is not a solo sport. You need everybody thinking about how to improve ministry, everybody asking questions. How could we improve? Everybody testing, everybody reflecting. As a leader, your job isn't to have all the answers. It's not to come up with the innovations yourself. Your job is to create a safe space where innovation can happen, where failure is okay because it's an opportunity to learn. Your job is to inspire your members and unleash them to innovate. That's what leadership looks like in a culture of innovation. Turn your people loose to innovate and cheer them along the way. The third barrier is what I call habituated volunteers. Churches, as you know, run on habit, and most volunteers are deeply set in their routines. Change disrupts those rhythms and causes stress with your volunteers. During the pandemic, every pastor felt the drain of broken habits and constant adjustments. To innovate effectively, start with inspired volunteers. Let them experiment while leaving existing habits in place for others. Once a new practice proves effective, retrain the habits of the rest of the team. The fourth barrier is insecurity and imposter syndrome. Leaders often fear that failure will expose them as frauds. That voice saying, "You're not good enough," keeps many from taking risks. But feeling insecure is often a sign that you're stretching yourself. There's hardly a week that goes by that I don't feel imposter syndrome at some point, but I've learned to bring it to God. Lord, I can't do this, but you can. That prayer becomes a powerful moment of surrender that opens the door for divine innovation. Psychologist Peter Shallard estimates that 70% of adults face imposter syndrome. It's normal, and it can also be transformational. So there's incredible power in insecurity. Feeling insecure is uncomfortable, yes, but it can also be a powerful force for personal growth, self-awareness, and spiritual transformation. When we recognize our insecurity, we can take it to God and say, Lord, this is too much for me. I can't do this, but I know that you can. So please give me a holy boldness to follow you even when it feels risky. We need to embrace our insecurities and let God use them for his kingdom. The fifth barrier is what I call chronic affirmation deficit. Words of affirmation hold incredible power. When someone affirms you, it feels good to be seen, to be recognized for who you are or what you've done. A 2016 study used functional MRI to study the brain's response to praise, and they found that affirmation lights up brain regions associated with self-processing and reward. In other words, affirmation is neurologically rewarding. Here's the problem. Criticism cancels it out. John Gottman's research at the University of Washington found that to maintain a healthy relationship, you need 5 positive interactions for every negative one, 5 to 1. And in my experience, most pastors and church leaders actually have that ratio flipped. They experience 5 negative interactions for every positive one. And this leads to chronic affirmation deficit. So what happens when you're living with chronic affirmation deficit? What happens when you're leading and serving and trying new things and the affirmation isn't there to offset the criticism? Well, science tells us that this chronic affirmation deficit leads to reduced productivity, less collaboration, and deep emotional burnout. And when that's your reality, risk becomes terrifying because the cost of failure feels too high. It's too high emotionally, spiritually, even physically. These 5 barriers, institutional culture, leadership control, habituated volunteers, insecurity, and chronic affirmation deficit, these lead to risk aversion. Churches default to what's safe. But here's the thing. Failure is power. I'm not talking about moral failure, but mission-driven failure, trying, learning, and growing. So it's time to change the culture around innovation in ministry. We need to stop hiding failure, stop spinning it, stop pretending that everything works, because the fastest way to grow is to fail forward. Celebrate failure as the first draft of breakthrough. Innovation demands risk. Risk brings failure, but failure, when handled with honesty and humility, is not the end. It's the beginning of real learning and real growth. That's what healthy innovation looks like. So, why is it so hard to innovate in the church? It's not because we lack vision or creativity. It's because we're up against 5 powerful barriers. First, a culture that punishes failure. When something doesn't work, we hide it instead of learning from it. Second, trying to control all the innovation yourself. Leaders feel pressure to have all the answers, but real innovation comes from empowering others. Third, habituated volunteers. Churches run on habit, and change is irritatingly disruptive. Fourth, insecurity and imposter syndrome. That inner voice that whispers, if this fails, they'll figure out that you don't belong here. And fifth, chronic affirmation deficit. Without encouragement, the emotional cost of risk feels too high. These barriers lead to fear, hesitation, and risk aversion. But failure isn't the enemy. Failure is actually the starting line for growth. So let's stop spinning failure. Let's start celebrating courage. Let's build churches where it's safe to try and fail and try again. Because the truth is, the first draft of success almost always looks like failure. So let's build churches that honor courage, celebrate honest effort, and fail forward into growth. If this episode spoke to you, would you do me a favor? Hit like, leave a comment, share this with another pastor or church leader who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of Ministry Insights from SermonView. In the last episode, I gave a behind-the-scenes look at how we launched this very podcast, Ministry Insights. If you'd like to hear how we researched, tested and learned through 52 iterations of the podcast. Check out the last episode of Ministry Insights from SermonView. Pastor, I know you're carrying a lot right now. You want to lead well. You want to reach your community. And sometimes it feels like innovation is just out of reach. But I want you to hear this. You're not a failure. You are not alone. And your courage to try, even when you're not sure how it will turn out, that matters. You are making a difference. And God is using you in ways you may not even see right now. So keep going. Keep serving. Keep innovating. And don't be afraid to fail forward. I love you guys. I'm cheering for you. We'll see you next time.